What's up, guys? This is the Osmo.com Night Shift Podcast. We're talking MLB for Tuesday, June 12th. We've got a huge slate of games, as we do for most Tuesdays. I believe we've got a full 15, and it's going to be a fun slate. A lot of good pitching, a lot of good hitting, some obvious spots, some maybe not so obvious spots. Get to Osmo.com, check out everything we have to offer. We've got a bunch of free content, including this podcast, including the Spotlight Pitchers, Hitters, and Stacks, as well as premium content from Osmo himself, including the ownership projections and the rankings that he puts out. Very, very helpful to anyone, especially helpful if you're multi-entering in any form. So I like to look at the ownership projections, no matter how many lineups I'm making. I think we do a really good job with those, and they've definitely helped me win some money lately. So let's get into this. I'm going to go through each game quickly, hit on a couple news and notes, mostly talk about pitching, but talk about some stacks and hitters along the way. Boston and Baltimore. We've got Eduardo Rodriguez against David Hess. I like Erod here a good amount. I think the Orioles are a team that I'm just going to continue to target against. They're just so brutal against both hands, just striking out a ton, chasing a ton, swinging a ton, and Erod can miss bats. So for 11-1, I think he's probably a little bit overpriced, especially being on the road here, but will be someone that I want to at least see how much he's going to be owned. And if he's going to be low owned, then I'll gladly take some shots on him, even at this increased price. Hess going up against the Red Sox is not great. I mean, a righty going up against Boston is really no chance for me when you're David Hess. Only really the best of the best arms I'm going to target against Boston, and Hess is not one of those on a huge slate. Gives up a bunch of fly balls, a bunch of hard contact to lefties, and then you've got good hitters from the right side on the Red Sox as well. If Mookie Betts is back, they become an even better stack at a hitter's park with some wind blowing out to left. So the Red Sox, I mean, great stack once again. It feels like we talk about them every single day, but they just keep popping up in good spots against righties. Nationals and Yankees. Tanner Roark going up against CC Sabathia. I'm not playing Roark here in Yankee Stadium. Huge total for the Yankees, 5.3. I like targeting lefties against Roark, but I'm never really crazy about righties as far as targeting them against Roark. So I like Stanton, Sanchez, and Judge just because they're all really good hitters, a lot of big power. One mistake and it's out of the park. But I will say I'm probably lower than most people on this Yankees stack. Greg Bird is actually my favorite option here for 3,700 against Roark. Just lefty power Roark struggles with, has really all of his career. But just lukewarm in the Yankees stack. I think they might go a little bit over-owned here. CC Sabathia for 6,600. I don't think I'm playing him here either. I would consider him at this price if it was against a different team, but the Nationals just not one where I think he's got a lot of upside for that price. So I like Rendon and Trey Turner, especially Rendon. I think he's one of my favorite plays on the slate for 3,900 against CC in Yankee Stadium. Colorado and Philadelphia. John Gray going up against Aaron Nola. Some interest in both pitchers here. Gray is 8,000, so he's the one that's a friendlier price on DraftKings. The Phillies have been really bad against right-handed pitching over the last month, but they just got back Rhys Hoskins. I mean, it's a bit of a boost, even against righties. Hoskins is just a good hitter to have in there, obviously, but I like Gray here. Just so much swing and miss upside. Weather's pretty good, 65 degrees in Philadelphia. I think this is going to be mostly a pitcher's duel here. Nola going for Philadelphia. The Rockies have been equally as bad as the Phillies have lately against righties especially. They just don't have much power from the left side besides Blackmon and maybe Carlos Gonzalez. Then you get guys like Desmond and Walters, the pitcher spot, etc. I mean, Nola's just... He's 12K, but I think he's got a good chance of being the highest raw point pitcher here, and if that's the case, then I'm going to have him in a bunch of lineups for 12,000 and fill in the bats around him. Minnesota and Detroit, because there's not a lot to talk about for hitting in that last game. So we'll go Odorizzi and Blaine Hardy. Odorizzi for 7,200 continues to miss bats. He had 7 Ks against the White Sox in his last start. Wasn't his best start, but still 7 strikeouts in 5 innings. Now he gets a righty-heavy Tigers team that we don't really think is any good. So consider me on the Odorizzi hype train. It's 4.6 total for Detroit. Not a perfect strikeout matchup. Detroit has been striking out a little bit more overall. And I'm not scared to target righties against them. When you got guys like Jacoby Jones and McCann and Dixon Machado and Jose Iglesias near the bottom of your lineup, there are some strikeouts to be had for Odorizzi, and I don't think he'll be owned really at all. Hardy, he doesn't look that great against either handedness so far. He's not really striking either of them out. Only 19% against righties, over 4.5 xFIP for both righties and lefties. And I actually like the Twins as a sneaky stack here. 4.5 run total is modest enough where I don't think a lot of people will be on them, but I just see a lot of, mostly one big misprice here, I think, is Max Kepler for 3,300. I talk about him all the time, but he just continues to hit lefties very well for the season. I like that they move Sano down behind all these guys. I like Escobar and Rosario and Dozier. I just don't leave the lefties out on the Twins, especially not Rosario and Kepler. So I think that's a way that I'm going to be a little bit sneaky, quote unquote, here, is by keeping in the lefties. San Francisco and Miami, we've got Chris Stratton going up against Trevor Richards. I'm always looking to target against Chris Stratton. The one thing I can say about him that's good is that he strikes out righties. So he's not like the worst option here in that I don't think he's got a great chance of getting blown up here just for how the Marlins set up. But I won't be going here for almost 8K on DraftKings. Give me John Gray 100 times out of 100 in this spot. It's just Gray is such a better pitcher than Chris Stratton. So Bohr and Real Muto are 2 guys I'll play against Stratton, but not all that crazy about the Marlins stack. Trevor Richards doesn't look like a great pitcher to me. I'm not going to play him, but I don't really like the Giants bats that much either. If the roof is open, it's a little bit better of a spot for both teams for hitting here, but man, I just don't see a lot that I like. I could make a case for McCutchen or even like Pablo Sandoval, but neither one of these teams is one that I'll be primarily stacking. Toronto and Tampa Bay, Jaime Garcia against, I believe it's going to be Stanek and then Pruitt, but that may change by the morning. So Jaime had a really good start results-wise against Baltimore, but the underlying stuff wasn't that great. Still, I think he has to be considered here, right? For 6,100, the Rays don't have Daniel Robertson. He's on the DL, and while Daniel Robertson isn't any sort of big name, he was one of their best hitters against lefties. So it's really only Cron and Ramos that I'm scared of at 3 and 4 for Jaime, but I think he can have another nice start here, even if he's not missing a ton of bats. Tampa Bay just does not have much to offer. So if it's Stanek, then Pruitt. I actually like Pruitt a little bit. He just had 2 fine outings against Seattle, which I was encouraged by. And then this is a much better matchup for him against Toronto. And if he's not starting the game, he won't have to deal with the top 4 batters at least. We'll have the majority of his at-bats, or the majority of his opponents will be near the bottom of the Orioles order against Pilar and Morales and Russell Martin and Aledmus Diaz. I don't think Toronto is like the perfect matchup or anything for him, but just was impressed by what I saw with Pruitt, and that's enough for me to get on him here a little bit if he's going to come in that middle relief that the Rays are doing. Mets and Braves, we've got, it's going to be Zach Wheeler, not Jason Vargas. So Zach Wheeler for 7,100 is not really someone I want to play against these Braves lefties. I like Albies. I like Freddie Freeman, Markakis. I even like Suzuki a little bit here as well. So it changes a little thing. I thought it was going to be it changes a little bit for me here. I thought it was going to be Vargas, but so I just like Freeman and Markakis a little bit more. I don't love Suzuki. He's not the same as he is against a lefty, but Albies still very much in play for me here. And then Fultonevich on the other side, striking out almost 29% of lefties on the year, which is pretty crazy because he couldn't really strike out lefties over the past couple of years and had huge splits, back-to-back games with an 11.3 swinging strike rate with a complete game shutout against the Nats. Then he followed that up with 8 Ks and an 18% swinging strike rate against the Padres, which is a pretty big number, even though it is the Padres. Still was pretty great to see for Fultonevich. He's 11.8, so the price is really the only thing keeping you back. But if you can fit him in, I think he's going to be a pretty nice option for a pay-up-to-be contrarian spot. And then Nimmo's really the only guy I want to play against Fulte here. Cleveland and the White Sox, Adam Plutko against James Shields. Plutko looks like he's been a pretty good pitcher at AAA this year. He should be stretched out, and then the White Sox are a team that I like targeting, striking out as much as anyone over the last month or so, really since the start of May, especially against right-handed pitching. So Plutko for 8,300 is someone I'll dig into more tomorrow, but definitely a guy I'm intrigued by so far. Shields going for the White Sox. Everyone's going to want to stack against him here since he got blown up by the Twins for pretty much the first time all year. He had one of those James Shields just meltdowns. I will say I'm not huge into targeting against Shields because his opponent is always over-owned, in my opinion, and I don't think that's going to be much different here with Cleveland. So I'll have a good amount of Lindor and Brantley and Ramirez, but as far as full stacking goes, I don't know that like the Indians here are the best play. I think Shields will be able to navigate the bottom of that lineup well enough. And I may eat those words later, but I'll just say the majority of my ownership will probably come from those top three. Chicago and Milwaukee, Tyler Chatwood against Chase Anderson. I love lefties against Chatwood. As I've said before, I think he's one of the worst pitchers against lefties. He's been better his last couple starts, but Yelich and Shaw, I'm absolutely loving here. Both hit righties extremely hard, and Chatwood will serve it up to left-handed bats, so those are two guys that I love. I could even get behind a full Brewers stack if it's going to go under-owned all the way down to Villar in the 6th spot. I'm not going to Chase Anderson against the Cubs here, even for 4,700. I just don't think you really need to do that tonight. I think you can find value in some other pitchers near Anderson's price. The Cubs bats, I would assume, would be somewhat of a popular stack. But with everyone wanting to pay up for Cleveland and for the Yankees, and there was one other, Red Sox, those are going to be some popular teams. So maybe the Cubs go a little bit under-owned here. All the guys in the top 6 are on my radar. I'll have a good handful of Cubs stacks against Chase Anderson, who I think has been pretty atrocious this year. So monitor that Cubs ownership. I wonder if they get left out of the bunch of the top stacks, because they're definitely in the top 5 for me, and they may move up the rankings. Cincinnati and Kansas City, we've got Saul Romano going up against Ian Kennedy, two of my favorite pitchers to stack against. The Royals are almost certainly going to put the ball in play pretty much every time against Saul Romano. Just he can't get strikeouts. Like, we've known this for a while. And the only problem I see with the Kansas City stack really is that they don't really have a lot of power against right-handed pitching. They've got one of the lowest ISOs over the last month against righties, and that's a little bit worrisome. I mean, you're getting Mike Moustakas for 4,300. I think he is an exceptional play as is Salvador Perez. I like Soler if he's in. I like Whit Merrifield if he's in. So it's the right price for the Royals against Romano, I think. And they just don't really set up that well. Like 1 through 9 or like 1 through 6 where you could get to a stack. I mean, Alcides Escobar for 2,700. I can't really play Alcides Escobar, but I'd even consider doing that against Sal Romano. Just $2,700 player betting second against Sal Romano. I'd probably play myself there. Ian Kennedy for 5,600. I think I can say almost certainly the Reds go under-owned here because of their pricing. You've got Scooter Gennett for 4,800, Votto 4,300. That's a little bit cheaper than we're used to. And then Schebler for 4,200. He's priced up. Barnhart will be popular, but man, Kennedy is pretty awful, especially against lefties. He's a little bit better against righties, but you get Eugenio Suarez as your right-handed bat and Adam Duvall both have big power, especially Suarez. So I like a game stack here. It's supposed to be 91 degrees, 2 gas cans on the mound from my ratings and from most people's ratings. So yeah, give me some Cincinnati, give me some Kansas City. One of my favorite, hopefully somewhat under the radar games of the night. All right, San Diego and St. Louis. Don't know who's going for San Diego right now, but we'll talk more about them. We'll talk more about San Diego and the St. Louis bats tomorrow morning once we get more clarity on that. Miles McCollus for 10.9. I think he's a terrific option here. Gets a ton of chases. Padres strike out just a ton. Those will be, or the Padres are going to be the bats that I want to target against with pitching. It's like, who are you really worried about in this Padres lineup? Not Jankowski, Hosmer somewhat, but then like Villanueva has power, but there's still so many strikeouts in this Padres lineup, and McCollus he's probably got the best matchup of the night. He's at home. He's a little bit expensive, but you could definitely swing that with McCollus. So not targeting any bats against him. Pittsburgh and Arizona. Trevor Williams against Clay Buchholz. Williams got wrecked last start, but he doesn't really give up much hard contact on the season, so I'm going to say that was more of a mirage than anything. I mean, guys will have blow-up starts a couple times a year. Arizona has a few guys that I like, but I don't really know how much I'll be stacking them. So Lamb and Descalso, Josh's boy, Daniel Descalso, David Peralta for 4,200 I like, and then Goldschmidt, he's up to 5,200, so just a couple short weeks and Goldschmidt's back up to being 5K after being like 4,200 against the lefty in May. So he's just hitting a lot better, and I don't mind playing him. Buchholz going for Arizona. I mean, maybe he has turned back the clock. I joked about him a couple starts ago, but everything I'm seeing out of him as far as the stats go, I haven't watched him pitch that much, but everything looks pretty good that I look for in a pitcher for DFS, and he's sort of creeping up my model on this slate. Only 4 run total for Pittsburgh here, but it is early. I mean, I don't know if I can talk myself into playing Clay Buchholz here. And there are a couple guys that I'm worried about for him. I'm worried about Meadows and Dickerson and Colin Moran and even Josh Bell to some extent. So I'll probably hold off on the Buchholz exposure for one more start. But if he does it again here, then man, I'm gonna have to start considering playing Clay Buchholz, which is just awful. Anyways, Houston and Oakland. Lance McCullers going up against Daniel Mengden. McCullers has had a couple average starts in a row, but those were against Boston and Seattle, so I'm kind of not putting a lot of stock into those, just tough strikeout matchups, and he's a guy that needs strikeouts to get him going, getting that groove a little bit. So Oakland I would have as a pretty neutral matchup, which is a big upgrade from how I have Boston and Seattle. And then everything else sort of checks out for McCullers. It's a good pitcher's park. He's still got huge strikeout upside, especially against this Oakland lineup. So I'm on him here for sure. 9,600. He's underpriced. I I mean, what's not to like about McCullers? He's had a couple average starts in a row. Like, guys are going to do that. It was tough matchups. I'm really not worried about him at all. Mengden, I am worried about. This will be his third straight start against the Astros. I'm sorry. This will be his third start against the Astros, not third straight start. So one went fine. One was really short with a lot of runs, and I'm sort of predicting the latter for this one. He doesn't miss bats. He doesn't get guys to chase. There's just really no reason for me to expect him to match up well at all here against the Astros. So I just don't see it with Mengden. I only see a 4.3 run total for the Astros. So if they're going to go under owned because they're priced up, got Altuve and Springer for 5K, then give me some Astros here at low-ish ownership, question mark, because it's really hard to gauge ownership the night before. But they're top 5 stack for me against Mengden. They've got a 184 ISO over the last month against right-handed pitching, and it's really the usual suspects. It's Gurriel, and the top 3, even down to Gaddis and McCann. Let's go to LA, the Angels, and the Mariners. I'm not sure who's going for LA, but I believe it's going to be Jaime Barria. And I think Barria is actually pretty good. He's got some really impressive swinging strike stuff over the last 4 starts, so pretty much the last month or so. And he's getting a ton of chases. I don't love the matchup if it's Barria for him, but if that's who's going to go for the Angels, then I'm probably not going to be on mini Seattle bats. Mike Leake confirmed for the Mariners. I mean, he's fine. He's 6,700. I don't really want to target against him heavily because he's just been pretty good at going deep and just avoiding damage lately. But I think I'm going to pass on playing him. I just don't see how he's going to get strikeouts against the Angels, who strike out at one of the lowest rates in the MLB. LA bats that I'm looking at are Trout. Of course, he's 5,900. A little bit of a discount on Trout there because he's not 6K for once. And then Valbuena, 3,200, just got big power against Leake, who gives up hard contact to both sides. Texas and LA, Bartolo Colon going up against, well, we don't really know yet. I'm seeing Kenta Maeda on Fangraphs right now, but this could also change. If it's Maeda, then he's going to be a guy that I want to play just because Texas is one of my favorite teams to target against. Let's see, who does DraftKings have for... Oh, Ferguson. Oh, is that right? If it is Ferguson, that would be pretty nice because he's only 6,100, but we do a quick Google search. And we can do this. We can talk more about the Dodgers starter. Let's see if their website has anything. Anyways, Bartolo Colon, you know what to do against him. You can pretty much play whoever. But I just like the good hitters because if Bartolo Colon is off, he's going to get pounded. 80 degrees in LA is nice here. Even in a night game, I'm really comfortable going 1 through 7, with my favorites being Justin Turner, Yasiel Puig, and Yasmani Grandal. Bellinger's starting to hit a little bit better as well. So really the full Dodgers stack, I mean, talk about one of the chalkier options of the night. They're priced as a mid-tier stack when I think they should be priced up even farther despite how bad they've been. There's no doubt that they have some power against righties. And then don't know who's starting for the Dodgers just yet, so we'll talk about that tomorrow. See if there's an intriguing option. Hope this got you ready for the huge slate on June 12th. That is a Tuesday. Get to Osmo.com. Check out the Spotlight hitters, pitchers, and stacks tomorrow morning. The MLB strategy video that will likely be live with Josh and I, and then the live stream with Chris and I at 6 Eastern. Good luck on this slate, guys.